The morning fog clung to the trees like breath on glass as I pulled into the gravel lot of the Pine Hollow Trail. The world was muffled, the air heavy, damp, and quiet enough that every movement of my boots against the ground sounded too loud. I'd driven 2 hours to get here, hoping for solitude. My plan was simple: hike the 12-mile loop, camp overnight near the ridge, and be back by morning. But as I shouldered my pack and looked toward the dark tree line, an unease I couldn't name slipped under my skin. There was only one other car in the lot, coated in a thin film of dust. A blue Tacoma with an empty bike rack. The interior looked abandoned, an old map on the passenger seat, coffee cup still in the holder. The date on the park permit caught my eye. 2 weeks ago. I brushed it off. People forgot things all the time. Still, when I started down the trail, I caught myself glancing back more than once, as if that truck was watching me leave. The first stretch wound through dense pine forest. The deeper I went, the dimmer the light became. No birds, no bugs, only the rhythmic crunch of leaves beneath me. The air smelled like rain-soaked bark and cold metal. Somewhere far off, I thought I heard water running, maybe a stream. I followed the sound until the trail curved along a ravine, where I noticed something strange, a faint whistle, low and breathy, weaving through the trees that at first, I assumed it was wind. But when I stopped, it stopped too. I held still, heart thudding, waiting for it to start again. A moment later, there it was, closer, clearer, 3 short notes, like someone imitating a bird call, but slightly off-pitch. I scanned the woods. Nothing moved. Then, behind me, a small pile of stones sat in the middle of the trail. I was sure it hadn't been there seconds ago. 5 smooth rocks stacked perfectly. I told myself I was imagining things. I kept walking, faster this time, glancing back every few minutes. The forest swallowed the daylight until everything took on a bluish hue. And then, at mile 3, I found the second pile, identical stones, same height. But this one had something wedged between them. A photograph. It was old, faded, showing 3 hikers standing in the same clearing I was in. The man in front wore a red jacket. His eyes seemed to stare right into mine. By the time I reached the first marker post, the sun was setting behind the ridge. The trail sign pointed toward a ranger outpost, 1 mile. Relief flooded through me. Maybe I could rest there before dark. My flashlight beam cut through the mist, the beam shaking slightly with each step. The forest grew quiet again, unnervingly still, as though something waited for me to speak first. The cabin appeared suddenly through the trees, a squat wooden structure with boarded windows and a metal chimney. I knocked on the door, expecting no answer, but it creaked open on its own. Inside smelled of wet wood and mold. Dust covered everything except a single chair in the corner and a half-burned candle on the table. A map hung on the far wall, showing the entire Pine Hollow region. Someone had drawn red circles over certain sections, all near where I stood. I sat down to rest, trying to steady my breathing. That's when I noticed faint carvings on the tabletop, words scratched by a knife. It follows you when you stop. My hand froze on the surface. My flashlight flickered, casting the room into shifting shadows. A soft whistle echoed from outside. 3 short notes. I darted to the door and shined the light into the woods. The beam caught something between the trees, a pale face for just an instant before it vanished. I slammed the door and shoved the chair beneath the handle, backing away until my spine hit the far wall. The whistle came again, this time longer, drawn out, almost mournful. Then silence. When morning came, I opened the door carefully. No footprints in the mud, no sign of anyone. But beside the steps lay another pile of rocks, and on top of it, my photograph from the night before, burned around the edges. The man in red was gone from it. Only the trees remained. The next few hours were a blur. I barely remember locking the elevator shaft or barricading the office door. All I know is that by 3 a.m., I was staring at the monitors, trying to piece together what Henry's voice meant. Behind the wall. Which wall? The answer came when I checked the floor plans again. Sector D wasn't missing, it was covered up. On the old blueprint, the section between hallway C and the east stairwell had once led to another corridor. But on the new plans, that space was marked as foundation reinforcement. In other words, sealed off. I grabbed my flashlight, a crowbar, and the building master key, and made my way to hallway C. The air grew colder with every step, like walking into a freezer. The walls looked the same as always, stained paint, flickering lights. But halfway down, something caught my eye. A section of plaster didn't match the rest. It was smoother, newer. Someone had patched it recently. I tapped it with the crowbar. Hollow. I hit harder. The plaster cracked, dust spilling into the air. With every swing, my heart pounded harder until finally, a hole opened wide enough for my light to pass through. On the other side was another hallway, completely untouched, frozen in time. I crawled through the opening. The air was heavy, humid, and smelled faintly of disinfectant and rust. The floor was tiled in faded green squares, smeared with something dark. Along the walls, old hospital doors hung slightly ajar, their windows covered in grime. I shone my light on the first door, D1, subject storage. The second door made my stomach twist, D2, Henry Wallace. I tried retracing my steps, but the trail was gone. Every direction looked the same. Endless trees, endless fog. My compass needle spun uselessly. Hours passed, maybe more. The whistle followed me no matter where I turned. Sometimes far off, sometimes whispering right beside my EAR.AT dusk. I found what looked like another path and followed it downhill. The terrain grew rough, roots clawing up through the soil. My legs ached, my throat burned. Then, ahead, I saw faint lights, flickering like lanterns. Relief surged through me until I realized the lights weren't from a cabin or campsite. They were hanging from the trees, dozens of small glass jars filled with candles. Beneath each one, carved into the trunks, were names. Hundreds of them. One jar hung lower than the rest, swaying slightly. My name was etched beneath it. I stumbled back, tripping over roots. The woods seemed to tilt around me. Somewhere in the darkness, that low whistle started again, now layered, multiple tones weaving together, as if more than one person was making it. I shined my light wildly, catching flashes of movement. Pale arms, faces half hidden behind bark, eyes reflecting the candlelight. I bolted. The forest howled with wind and something else, footsteps closing in behind me, echoing in uneven rhythm. I didn't stop until I burst into another clearing and collapsed beside a stream. My lungs burned. When I looked up, I saw the reflection of the lanterns behind me, growing closer. I crossed the water, slipping on stones, and didn't look back until I reached the other side. The lights had vanished, but my reflection in the water wasn't alone. Another face stared back beside mine, expressionless, pale, with empty black eyes. Dawn broke gray and cold. Somehow, I'd made it back to the trailhead, though I didn't remember how. My car sat exactly where I'd left it, dew coating the windshield. But the blue Tacoma was gone. Only tire marks in the mud remained. I climbed into my seat, shaking, desperate to leave. When the engine started, the radio crackled, static first, then faint voices. I tried changing the station, but every channel was the same whispering, overlapping phrases I couldn't understand. Then, through the static, came 3 clear notes. That same whistle. I slammed the radio off and sped down the dirt road. For miles, the forest pressed close on either side, shadows moving between the trunks. When I finally hit the highway, I pulled over to catch my breath. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I reached for my phone. No signal. I opened the photo gallery, wanting to check the picture of the trail markers I'd taken earlier. There was only one image, the clearing filled with stone piles. And standing among them, now clear and centered, was me, staring straight at the camera. 4 days afterward, I tried convincing myself it was exhaustion, paranoia. I threw out the burned photo, deleted the videos, swore I'd never go near those woods again. But some nights, when the wind pushes through the trees outside my house, I still hear that whistle. 3 short notes, always closer than it should be. And last week, I walked out to my car and found something waiting on the hood. 5 smooth stones stacked perfectly, the top one holding a small, faded photograph of the Pine Hollow Trail. I wasn't in that picture, but someone else was, wearing my jacket, walking into the woods.